everyone, I'm Lynn with Psychic Focus at psychicfocus.blogspot.com, and today's topic, I'm calling it the October surprise in NESARA, N-A-S-A-R-A, and I'm sure a lot of you have probably already heard about this, and I realize this question is lengthy, but I think it's really important to read all of this out loud, so I'll just get right to it. Lynn, can you look into the National Economic Security and Recovery Act, and they call it NESARA. Many think it's happening now. This could totally change the country and even change the way other countries interact with the U.S. Could this be part of the October surprise? And people keep talking about this October surprise. So on my blog, I have a link to an article about NESARA. I'll also put it on the top comment in my YouTube video. That way it's easily accessible for you if you want to go in and read it. But I'm just going to go through the main points of what is in this and what it talks about, and then my impression, what I'm able to get intuitively on this topic itself. So I'm going to list off the points here. Zeroes out, this is if this goes through, or what this talks about. To zero out all credit card, mortgage, and other bank debt due to illegal and government activities. This is a Federal Reserve's worst nightmare, a jubilee or a forgiveness of debts. And they call it the debt jubilee, and basically all is forgiven. They want to abolish the income tax, abolish the IRS. Employees of the IRS will be transferred to the U.S. Treasury National Sales Tax Area. They want to create a 14% flat rate, non-essential, new item only sales tax revenue for the government. In other words, food and medicine are not going to be taxed, nor will used items such as old homes. So basically, if you're the first person to own a car, a brand new house, some new item, you get taxed at a flat tax, and that is it. There's no taxing on things that have already been taxed, and so forth. So flat tax, and you have a choice. You either want to buy it new or you do not. Increased benefits to senior citizen. Returns constitutional law to all the courts and legal matters. Reinstates the original title of nobility amendment. Establishes new presidential and congressional elections within 120 days of NESARA's announcement. The interim government will cancel all national emergencies and return back to constitutional law. Monitor elections and prevent illegal election activities of special interest groups. I'm sure the lobbyists will love that. Create new U.S. Treasury rainbow currency backed by gold, silver, and platinum precious metals. Ending bankruptcy of the United States initiated by Franklin Roosevelt in 1933. Forbids the sale of American birth certificate records as property bonds by the U.S. Department of Transportation, which I'm not sure that that's worded right, but that's how it was listed out in this article. Initiates U.S. Treasury bank system in alignment with constitutional law. Eliminate the Federal Reserve System. During this transition period, the Federal Reserve will be allowed to operate side by side of the U.S. Treasury for 1 year in order to remove all Federal Reserve notes from the money supply. And we get back to the purity of our money versus the diluted thing that they've started here with all the inflation. Okay, restore financial privacy. Retrains all judges and attorneys in constitutional law. So go by the Constitution instead of your interpretation of the Constitution. Cease all aggressive U.S. government military actions worldwide. So to some extent, letting people sort their own affairs out rather than people going in and saying this is the way that it needs to be and make your way the only way. It looks like they want to cease that. They want to establish peace throughout the world, release enormous sums of money for humanitarian purposes, and lastly, enable the release of over 6,000 patents of suppressed technology that are being withheld from the public under the guise of national security, including free energy devices, oil companies will love that, anti-gravity, and sonic healing machines. So go big pharma, right? So a lot of things going on here, and that will totally transform the way that our world is run should all of this go through. So what I did was I looked at each thing to see what stood out to me, what change can I see possibly on the horizon, what is in the works, when is this happening, all these kind of things. So when I first heard this and I read the list, it felt like a completely ideal restructuring of these elements could be incorporated. The challenge is if these things can really happen and be implemented. So, as I said, I'm going to break them down and see what comes forward. And looking at first the taxes and the debt, I do get phases of this are being implemented, but this is a very slow process. Things have been announced and actions being put forth, some, to start these changes. The Fed is going to completely resist this. And if a socialist-oriented person gets into the high office, this will be completely thwarted and not what the powers that were want. So it is really dependent on who gets voted into office in November. November 3rd, go vote. So, powers that were, they've made billions, if not more, on the concept of usury, interest, and transaction tax, like the selling of a house and car. So think about it. When a car is bought, it's taxed. If you sell the car and someone else buys it, it's taxed again. If that person sells it again, it's also taxed. So why are they continuing to tax the same item multiple times? It's already been paid in the first transaction. It shouldn't be subsequent taxing, and that's what they want to eliminate. It also eliminates all this other part of taxation and makes it very simple. A flat tax, the first time purchase, and then you're over and done with it. So should Trump remain in office and they're fighting everything they can to get him out, I see that portion of NESARA moving forward sooner rather than later, as Trump doesn't want this to depend on the result of the November 3rd election. And that might actually be what's tied to the October surprise, is some announcement that has to deal with how they're going to handle the taxation. And rather than him wait another month or two to really push this, I get he's trying very hard to do it now because it has to be done sooner rather than later. This isn't a matter that they can wait and take a chance on something interfering with it. I don't see an increase in benefit, but rather the underlying structure being revamped to increase purchasing power of what they already have. Pharma and medicine, they're going to be on the radar for this, and things will be put into better check. Again, this is going to go a different direction with socialism. People will be given handouts, but the cost of goods will be so high via the rise of taxation that inflation is going to cancel out the gains. So when they're talking about senior citizens getting more money or being cared for better in that regard, it may have an appearance of that should a socialist get in there because of universal health care and things like that. But we're going to be taxed at such an insane rate on everything that we do that the taxation is going to cancel out the benefit. So your net gain in the end is really nothing if not negative. Everything is really pending on November in a major, major way here. Constitutional law is going to be held in much higher regard. Rather than interpreting the law is going to be the law. This is another reason the Supreme Court is such a hot topic and the Dems are blocking the appointment. The socialists have started a trend that if the law doesn't fit their narrative, they try to bend it. With the element of NESARA, there will be no bending. Like right now, the First Amendment is under attack. They want to modify what is allowed to be considered free speech. I mean, this whole thing is what it is, I guess. The meddling in other countries' matters are going to be reevaluated too. People that have fought wars for decades, even centuries, aren't going to change their cultural beliefs because some other entity comes in and says their way is right. So when certain countries go into other countries who've been warring forever and basically saying, hey guys, stop it, our way's the right way, that is always going to be a battle. People need, in some instances, to figure stuff out themselves and resolve it and have closure and move forward. So that is what I see in regards to that. The best way to deal with this is to help the negotiations to create peace, but you can't go in and tell them your way is the only way. I see this going on currently, and it's been going on for a while. It takes time and lots of patience. So you can try to facilitate peace, but to go in and force your way, that's going to end up in a war. That's the opposite of peace. I do see that patents are going to be released if we continue on with a more conservative leadership. Not because conservative is better, but because the left-leaning socialists are in cahoots with the powers that were, namely a certain guy that rhymes with Boros and brought and paid for by them in one way or another. There's also conservatives that may not be honorable, but they haven't been infiltrated to the extent of the socialist side yet. So it's not a battle of conservatives are going to release patents, whereas the socialists won't. It's more of the socialists have been bought and paid for already, and they haven't quite penetrated the full conservative group yet. And that's my intuitive impression of NESARA as it stands as of today. So I'd love to hear your impression too. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about this. Maybe you have some things going on where you live where you can see some of this playing out and already being implemented. So thank you for listening. Please feel free to leave a comment. Don't forget to like my video and subscribe to my channel. Again, I'm Lynn with Psychic Focus at psychicfocus.blogspot.com. Thanks. Bye.